Welcome, esteemed listeners, to Future Forward, your weekly nexus for dissecting the societal transformations shaping our world. Tonight, we delve into a profoundly significant and increasingly debated proposition: universal basic income. Is UBI a visionary panacea for the multifaceted challenges of the 21st century, or an economically unfeasible utopian ideal? This is the central question we aim to explore with intellectual rigor. To illuminate this complex topic, we are privileged to host two distinguished experts: Professor Ben Carter, an eminent academic specializing in social policy and a fervent proponent of UBI, and Ms. Sophia Chen, a pragmatic economist and esteemed policy advisor, who will offer a critical examination of the UBI concept. Our debate will commence with opening statements from each guest. This will be followed by 2 rounds of rebuttals and in-depth discussion, culminating in closing statements. We are aiming for a C1 level discourse, characterized by nuanced arguments, sophisticated vocabulary, and intricate sentence structures befitting the gravity of our subject.
Thank you, Dr. Hayes. Universal Basic Income, or UBI, at its core, is an elegantly simple yet profoundly transformative concept. An unconditional, regular payment disbursed by the government to all its citizens, irrespective of their employment status or other income sources. This payment is designed to establish a foundational economic floor, a bedrock of security upon which individuals can build their lives. The ethical imperative for UBI, I contend, stems from a fundamental recognition of inherent human dignity. In an era of unprecedented global affluence, juxtaposed starkly with persistent and deepening inequalities, ensuring a basic standard of living is not merely an act of charity, but a societal obligation and a fundamental human right. We possess the resources. The question is one of political will and equitable distribution. The socioeconomic benefits are manifold and compelling. Firstly, UBI directly confronts and ameliorates poverty, significantly narrowing the pernicious wealth gap that destabilizes societies. Secondly, a growing body of evidence from pilot programs globally indicates tangible improvements in both mental and physical health outcomes. By alleviating the chronic financial stress that plagues so many, UBI allows individuals to make healthier choices and reduces the burden on public healthcare systems. Furthermore, UBI is a potent catalyst for empowerment. It provides individuals with the agency to pursue further education, acquire new skills vital for a changing economy, dedicate time to crucial but often uncompensated caregiving roles, or even embark on innovative entrepreneurial ventures without the paralyzing fear of destitution. This fosters a more dynamic and resilient citizenry. Crucially, in the face of relentless advancements in automation and artificial intelligence, which threaten to displace vast swaths of the workforce, UBI presents itself not as a panacea, but as a crucial adaptive mechanism. It offers vital stability and a safety net during periods of significant labor market transition. Indeed, initial findings from various UBI experiments across diverse cultural and economic contexts hint at these positive outcomes, often demonstrating increased well-being and, importantly, no significant widespread decline in workforce participation, contrary to common apprehensions.
Dr. Hayes, Professor Carter, thank you. I certainly acknowledge and share the laudable intentions underpinning the advocacy for universal basic income. The goals of poverty alleviation and enhanced economic security are undeniably noble and align with the aspirations of any compassionate society. However, my primary and most profound concern lies with the stark economic viability, or rather the potential inviability, of implementing such a comprehensive scheme on a national scale. The prospective costs are not merely substantial. They are, by most sober analyses, astronomical. We must rigorously question the fiscal sustainability of disbursing a regular, unconditional income to every citizen. This inevitably leads to intractable funding dilemmas. Proponents often gloss over the sheer magnitude of resources required. Financing UBI would necessitate either unprecedentedly substantial tax hikes across the board, impacting individuals and corporations alike, or drastic and potentially devastating reallocations of public spending from other essential services, such as healthcare, education, or infrastructure. Both scenarios carry the risk of severe negative economic repercussions, including capital flight, diminished investment, and stifled economic growth. Beyond the fiscal abyss, there's the inherent and widely debated risk that UBI could disincentivize work. If individuals receive a guaranteed income sufficient for basic needs without any requirement to contribute through labor, it is plausible, indeed probable, that a significant portion may opt out of the workforce or reduce their working hours. This could precipitate labor shortages in critical sectors, lead to a contraction in economic output, and foster a decline in overall productivity, ultimately undermining the very economic base needed to fund the UBI. The societal implications of a substantially reduced workforce and the potential erosion of a collective work ethic also warrant serious consideration. Furthermore, UBI strikes me as a remarkably blunt and inefficient instrument for poverty reduction when contrasted with existing targeted welfare programs. These programs, while imperfect and often in need of reform, are specifically designed to channel assistance to the most vulnerable and clearly defined populations. Strengthening and refining these targeted systems would likely be a more cost-effective and efficient means of achieving similar social goals. Lastly, one cannot ignore the palpable inflationary risks. A widespread, sudden injection of unconditional income into the economy, without a corresponding increase in the production of goods and services, could trigger significant inflationary pressures, thereby eroding the purchasing power of the UBI itself, particularly for those it is most intended to help.
Professor Carter, Ms. Chen has articulated significant concerns regarding the fiscal sustainability of UBI. How would you counter the argument that the sheer cost makes it an impractical solution, and what specific, viable funding mechanisms do you envision at a C1 level of economic complexity?
Ms. Chen's points on fiscal prudence are well taken, yet I believe they stem from a conventional, perhaps overly static view of public expenditure. It's imperative to reframe the costs associated with UBI not merely as an expense, but as a strategic, long-term investment in human capital and societal well-being. The economic dividends from such an investment can be substantial. Reduced healthcare expenditure due to improved public health, lower crime rates associated with diminished poverty and desperation, and a surge in innovation and entrepreneurship as individuals are freed to pursue creative endeavors. Regarding specific funding mechanisms, a sophisticated and diversified portfolio approach is essential. This could include, firstly, the judicious reallocation of existing inefficient subsidies, particularly those propping up environmentally damaging industries like fossil fuels. Secondly, progressive tax reforms are paramount. This entails not only potentially higher marginal rates for top earners, but also the serious consideration of wealth taxes on substantial fortunes or taxes on financial transactions which are currently undertaxed relative to their economic impact. Carbon taxes, with revenues recycled to fund UBI, offer a dual benefit of environmental protection and social support. Furthermore, in resource-rich nations, the establishment or expansion of sovereign wealth funds, with a portion of their returns dedicated to UBI, presents a viable avenue. It's also crucial to consider the dynamic economic effects. UBI can stimulate aggregate demand, particularly at the local level, thereby boosting small businesses and generating further tax revenue. This is far from a zero-sum game.
Ms. Chen, Professor Carter posits UBI as an investment with diverse funding possibilities, capable of yielding long-term societal dividends, and as a necessary adaptation to future economic landscapes, particularly automation. Given these points, are traditional welfare systems and job training programs which you advocate for sufficiently equipped to handle the profound societal shifts anticipated in the coming decades?
Professor Carter's vision of UBI as a multifaceted investment is certainly appealing in its optimism. But the proposed funding mechanisms, while theoretically diverse, present formidable practical and political challenges. For instance, the implementation of substantial wealth taxes or significant hikes in higher income brackets often faces immense political resistance and carries the genuine risk of capital flight, thereby shrinking the very tax base intended for UBI. Similarly, while reallocating subsidies sounds straightforward, these are frequently deeply entrenched and protected by powerful interests. Consumption taxes, if not meticulously designed with exemptions for necessities, can be regressive, disproportionately burdening lower-income households. My concern regarding the work ethic extends beyond mere hours worked. It encompasses the societal value placed on contribution, skill acquisition, and aspiration. A dynamic economy, especially one grappling with automation, requires an adaptable, engaged, and continuously upskilling workforce, not a potential detachment facilitated by unconditional income, however well-intentioned. Therefore, I maintain that strengthening, modernizing, and expanding existing targeted safety nets offers a more pragmatic path. Conditional cash transfers, for example, tied to educational attainment for children, or preventative healthcare measures, have proven effective in many contexts. Robust, sustained investment in lifelong learning, vocational training, and reskilling initiatives directly addresses the challenge of employability in an automated age, fostering active participation rather than passive receipt. These approaches are more adaptable and can be scaled or modified based on evolving economic conditions and evidence of their efficacy, arguably offering a more responsible stewardship of public funds than the wholesale adoption of a UBI.
Let's delve deeper into the societal fabric. Professor Carter, a key counterargument, eloquently articulated by Ms. Chen, revolves around the intrinsic value of work beyond mere income, and the potential for UBI to inadvertently devalue contribution or foster dependency. How does UBI preserve or perhaps redefine the concept of societal contribution, viewed through a C1 level of sociological understanding?
That is a critical question, Dr. Hayes. UBI's transformative potential lies precisely in its capacity to decouple basic human survival from the often coercive necessity of engaging in precarious or unfulfilling labor. This decoupling does not devalue contribution. Rather, it liberates individuals to pursue activities that are intrinsically motivating and profoundly valuable to society, even if traditionally unremunerated or under-remunerated by the market. Consider community engagement, volunteering, artistic and cultural endeavors, the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, or complex caregiving roles for children, the elderly, or those with disabilities. These are pillars of a healthy society, often undervalued by narrow, market-centric definitions of productivity. UBI fosters a broader, more holistic understanding of contribution, acknowledging and supporting the generation of social and cultural capital. Furthermore, by providing an economic safety net, UBI significantly strengthens workers' bargaining power. Individuals are better positioned to refuse exploitative working conditions, demand fair wages, and seek employment that aligns with their skills and values, thereby improving overall job quality and fostering a more dignified labor market.
Ms. Chen, beyond the strictly economic metrics, Professor Carter suggests UBI could redefine productivity in a more inclusive manner and empower individuals within the labor market and society. What are the potential nuanced, perhaps unintended social consequences or complex implementation intricacies that particularly concern you, even if the significant economic hurdles were hypothetically overcome? Even setting aside the formidable economic questions, Professor Carter's vision of a redefined productivity, while aspirational, overlooks potential nuanced social downsides. A widespread, albeit voluntary, detachment from the traditional labor market could, for some segments of the population, inadvertently lead to increased social isolation or a diminished sense of purpose, particularly if community engagement structures are not robustly developed in parallel. The quote, dignity of work as a concept still resonates deeply for many, providing not just income, but also identity, social connection, and a structured role in society. Moreover, the administrative complexity of implementing UBI is colossal. Dismantling or attempting to seamlessly integrate myriad existing targeted welfare programs, each with its own bureaucracy and beneficiary groups, into a universal system would be an unprecedented bureaucratic undertaking, fraught with potential errors and gaps in provision during transition. The universal aspect itself, while appealing in its simplicity, means substantial financial transfers to individuals who, by any reasonable measure, do not require such support. Clawing this back effectively and equitably through the tax system to ensure progressivity adds yet another layer of intricate fiscal engineering and potential for public discontent regarding perceived fairness. And I must briefly reiterate the concern that a sudden, large-scale increase in aggregate demand, not matched by commensurate increases in productivity or supply, particularly in sectors like housing or essential services, could precipitate significant localized or even widespread price inflation. This could disproportionately harm the very vulnerable populations UBI aims to protect, effectively negating its benefits unless meticulously managed, which adds further complexity to its implementation. In conclusion, while I deeply respect the humanitarian aspirations that fuel the UBI movement, my analysis compels me to highlight the prohibitive costs, the undeniable risks to labor participation and national productivity, and its inherent inefficiency when contrasted with more precisely targeted support mechanisms. The potential for unintended negative consequences, from inflationary pressures to the complexities of dismantling effective existing systems, cannot be understated. Therefore, I must assert that, for the foreseeable future, UBI remains an imprudent policy direction. Instead, our focus should be on evidence-based, fiscally responsible enhancements to our existing social safety nets. We must proactively invest in labor market policies that directly address skills gaps, promote lifelong learning, and vigorously support employment and contribution, rather than fostering potential disengagement from it. This pragmatic approach, I believe, offers a more sustainable and effective pathway to achieving our shared goals of a prosperous and equitable society.
Thank you. I wish to reiterate that universal basic income holds truly transformative potential for our societies. It offers a tangible pathway towards a future with drastically reduced poverty, enhanced individual autonomy and dignity, and significantly greater resilience in the face of inevitable technological disruption and economic uncertainty. UBI should not be viewed as a mere expenditure, but as a courageous, forward-looking policy that invests directly in human potential. It fosters a more equitable distribution of our collective societal wealth and empowers individuals to contribute in diverse and meaningful ways, beyond the confines of traditional employment. The challenges are not insignificant, but they are not insurmountable with careful design and political will. I conclude with a call for courageous, open-minded consideration and, crucially, further robust experimentation with various UBI models. It is an idea whose time is ripening, an essential component, I firmly believe, of building a more just, secure, and prosperous future for all in this complex 21st century.
Professor Ben Carter, Ms. Sophia Chen, thank you both for your exceptionally insightful and sophisticated contributions to this critical discussion. Your articulate arguments have profoundly illuminated the complexities of universal basic income. Tonight, we've explored the core tension: UBI presented as a visionary solution for future societal challenges, versus the perspective of it being a potentially costly and disruptive gamble with significant unknown variables. We encourage our listeners to engage critically with the multifaceted arguments presented, to delve deeper into the evidence, and to form their own informed opinions on this pivotal issue that will undoubtedly shape future policy debates.